P90X is just a different experience.
We always talk about taking people to the next level and pushing people to the extreme, maximizing their potential. That's exactly what I'm here for.
I'm invested in your results.
Waz Ashayer, the latest super trainer of BODi, welcome to the team.
It's called extreme home fitness for a reason. Now, that doesn't mean that your entry level of fitness needs to be elite. It's for anybody that's willing to show up every day. That's what P90X is. Is it extreme? Are you going to be doing stuff that you don't do in other programs? Absolutely. There's going to be a move called a Bulgarian split squat jump that you're going to look at and be like, but we will take you there. We will take you there. So we will build you up a nice crescendo. You'll learn some stuff, you'll learn some more stuff, and then you'll be flying.
We'll have a accountability group that kicks off on February 9th, which is actually the day after the Super Bowl.
Yes.
This is an exciting time. This is the evolution of extreme home fitness. This is P90X Generation Next, and you are officially invited. Look at this. That's right. The BODi Experience podcast is coming right from the set of the new P90X Generation Next. Now look, P90X is a phenomenon. Back in 2005, when we originally launched it, obviously with the great Tony Horton, you would have thought this program was going to be lightning in a bottle. And at first, it just wasn't. People didn't get it. They saw the infomercial. The infomercial was great. And they were like, that looks too hard. And then we started to refine it. And we started to show the results that people were getting. And it took us like 24 months and like 20 different versions of the infomercial. And then it was a overnight success that took a little over 2 years. But then there was no stopping it. People were, they were doing it in the White House. Professional athletes were doing it. And P90X, what I was told originally, which was a terrible name for a fitness product because it means nothing to people, all of a sudden took on a life of its own. And it was on talk shows and late night shows, and comedians were incorporating it into their stand-ups, and we're watching it referred to in movies. This has been a phenomenon. And it's a phenomenon that started, back in 2005. So it's over 20 years old, but the phenomenon continues. So last year, I was actually talking to the executive chairman of the company, who said that thing was a phenomenon. Why don't you do another one? And I said, well, Tony's moved on. He's doing his own thing. And the brand had its time. We did 3 versions of it and a bunch of what we call P90X one-on-ones. And Mark said, no way. This brand is too big, and we can create supplements around it and really make it something that the next generation deserves to have P90X to do in their home. So we thought about it, and we thought, okay, well, if we're going to do that, kind of similar to, the 007 James Bond franchise, you have your Sean Connery for a while, and then you reinvent the franchise, and you need the next James Bond. So we went on a global talent search. And ironically, we ended up finding a Brit, a trainer from the UK, who the day I met him, I knew I was sitting across from the next James Bond of P90X. I was sitting across from a phenomenon who has gone through his own journey, his own exploration into fitness, that would bring something new that would make P90X Generation Next its own breakthrough. So I'd like to introduce you today to see why I was so impressed when I met this guy. Please welcome to the BODi Experience podcast, Mr. Waz Ashayer.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
It's great, man. Well, look, I wonder, P90X is such a franchise and means so much to, people my age. I did it when I was trying to get the transformation of my life as I turned 40. So it's been 20 years, right? I'm 62 now. I do intend to do this. So I wonder, though, what does it feel like to be the guy in front of and in charge of designing a program called P90X Generation Next.
I mean, you just say the words P90X. I think everybody just has an experience with the franchise, with the brand, and they have a story to tell. So just upon mentioning that you're even involved with it is just monumental. And then to be like the front guy who's leading it, and sort of pioneering it into the next generation or generation next is just such an honor. Is been a roller coaster. I mean, you go through the whole, I mean, as you know, you go through the whole thing of designing the program and tried and tested, and it's been a phenomenal experience. But it's just, to answer your question, it's just been an honor, and it's a once in a lifetime experience, and it's something I definitely won't forget.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe it won't be once in a lifetime. Maybe there'll be multiples in a lifetime. But I want to go back. I think it's important. One of the things about being a super trainer is sort of the journey that gets you there. Like, it is not easy to be chosen as a super trainer because we are very specific about what we look for. And so I want to go back to how you even got into fitness. And I know you're so passionate about it, but can you take me on the journey a little bit about how you got here and what you're bringing to the industry that's maybe different?
Of course. I mean, I'm 36 now. I qualified as a personal trainer when I was 17. So I had a passion for exercise and just, and just moving my body basically. And then I thought, well, hold on, I want to learn a bit more. So at the time, it wasn't really like a done thing, but I actually used my summer holiday to do, you had to go in real life then. You had to like go to a school and stuff. So
Mm,
it's not online. It was
right.
like you had to study every single day for like, I think it was for the whole of the summer. It was like 6 to 8 weeks. Um, and you'd be put in a classroom and you'd learn, you'd get a diploma in personal training. You do your group fitness certification, which is a level 2, and then you do your level 3, which is your personal training. And I decided to do that when I was 17. And it was just out of just curiosity. Like I would go to the gym all the time, and I was one of those typical people who would just like go to the gym, go on every machine, do a couple of reps and sets, go around, do a couple of reps and sets. And I was like, there's got to be more to it than this. There's got to be like a method or a way to really be efficient here. So I took my qualification.
Yeah, and now at that time, what were you doing? Like, 17, 18, obviously you're getting out of school or whatever. What was your real dream? Like, where were you gonna head vocationally? What was your career gonna be?
So when I was actually like a bit of a geek. I was like, I got straight A's at school. I was like a goody two shoes. Like I definitely wasn't this like outlandish extrovert person that I necessarily come across as today. But actually loved the school. Like I loved the homework vibe. I was the opposite. I'm a twin brother. My brother was literally like the polar opposite of me. Um, and yeah, I basically did all my schooling, but then I got given an opportunity to do modeling. So in order, it was modeling, nightlife, and then I revisited fitness. So cut a long story short, I actually went on a TV show called Make Me a Supermodel, which was a sort of reality TV show where a top agency called Select Models were sort of like trying to find the next face. And I was successful in being on the show, and that set up my modeling career. I got an agency. I was actually got signed to Select, and I modeled for many years. That sort of required you to be in shape because you were turning up to photo shoots sort of on a daily basis. I was flying all around the world. I put my studies on pause, and I went off and I lived in many different countries. I lived in Greece, I lived in Milan, I lived in LA, I lived, for periods of time, and fitness was always there. Fitness was always something that was part of my routine. It was something that I definitely relied upon, mentally and physically. And then I went into nightlife, because I was around certain people. I was meeting celebrities, and then I ended up doing celebrity hospitality for nightclubs. So I sort of resided back in London and spent all my time in London, and I ran, the public relations and the sort of relationships for all the top nightclubs, bars, and restaurants. Um, and I still continued to do my fitness. I was still into my fitness. I was still going to the gym religiously, and um, I took a turn. Sort of, I'm giving a nice short synopsis, but I took a turn when I was 27, and I decided to knock it on the head with sort of drink and substance, and there's quite a dark story there, and then I yeah decided to put a halt on that, and I was like, I've got to pursue this fitness thing. This fitness thing is what my passion is, and it's what my love is, and I do it every day. And I generally wanted to help others. I generally wanted to, like, and I think it was the same. If you look at my jobs, the hospitality is the same thing. It's helping somebody. So I just thought about, right, if I take those set of skills and I apply them to something I'm really passionate about, then, maybe I'm on something. So you have to start from the bottom. You have to start right from the bottom again. You have to do like 20, 30 classes a week, and then run around and try and teach as many classes as possible. Try and get your name out there, but also try and learn in the process as well. Try and be around great people, great coaches, great mentors, and that enabled me to sort of climb my way up. And then I started off in a place called BXR, which is a combat gym. It's Anti Joshua's boxing gym. I did sort of Muay Thai classes. I've
Now,
got
now can I stop you 1 second? Because I want to hear the rest of this, but hold on. I don't want to skip over something that I think can be really valuable for our audience, okay? Because we've got people who, literally, and I think that what BODi does that's special is, we help people who would classify themselves as not fitness people, right? That's who we're reaching to. The fitness people, they know they can go to the gym, or they can cobble together something, or they can find, moves on Instagram and put them together, and they've got their routine and their discipline and they love it. That's not me. I need to plug into a program. And, and I hate it every day, but I love it. I love the outcome of it. So I need to do it. Now, so you said you were in a dark place during the nightlife, and you decided at age 27 to, I think you said, put a stop to it or something. And okay. So I don't need to go into that. That's your business. But something happened for you that you managed to change the definition of yourself, right?
correct.
So you're in the middle of that darkness, which can be defining for you. So how did you manage to change the definition of yourself? Because I think that can be valuable for the people who might be attracted to the concept of P90X Generation Next, but go, I never finish a program. I'm not that kind of person. I can't do extreme things. It hurts too much. What did you do to redefine yourself that maybe they might be able to empirically apply to their decision to do P90X?
It's such a great through line, and I'll tell you why. Because especially with P90, it's in the name. It's 90 days. Whenever you try and go sober, or you try and stop using a substance, or you try and change, you try and alter your course. Everybody says the same thing: take each day as it comes. And it's like, and if I were to tell anybody that was sort of apprehensive about doing this program, because there was this big debate about, is P90X for everybody? I mean, in fitness, everybody says it's for everybody. I mean, it is and it isn't. It's for everybody, but it requires everybody to commit daily. So going back to your question, it's like you take every day as it comes. So when I was in that situation when I was 27, there was loads of times that I tried before. So to relate it back to the BODi audience, I'm sure they've tried loads of other programs before. You know, I'd get to like 50 days and then I'd fall off the bandwagon. It'd be someone's birthday and I'd make up an excuse.
Mm.
I get to 100 days, I'd go on holiday with my best friend and, we're on holiday. So it's all fine. The thing is, there's always going to be something, there's always something lingering. And I think it's the same with fitness programs. You might be apprehensive because you're like, oh, I've tried this. I tried to do P90X, back in the day, and I did 60 days and then I fell off. I did 2 months. I didn't do the 3 months. I did 1 month. I did the first week. And I think what BODi are incredible at, having seen the platform and having been on the inside now, is you're doing this with a community of people. So yes, you're showing up. I see your stories and your posts, and truth be told, I love them because you're like the most enthusiastic person ever. And you literally do everybody's program. Joel, you do the Sean's. I mean, you just chuck yourself into the programs, which is like fantastic. Um, and I just think you have to take every day, and they don't have to be great days. Like, if you speak to anybody who's like who you look up to in the fitness world and stuff, not every session is like, a home run. Those home run sessions feel great when you've turned up to the other ones and you're like, this feels different. This feels even better. So to answer your question, the comparison is the day by day. Take every day as it comes, and you will be successful.
Yeah, totally agree. Now, you're talking about like your enthusiasm for it. You were getting something from it from, that early age. You got certified. What do you think you bring to fitness and particularly now P90X? But what do you, and I do want to get to a little bit more of the background of your fitness right after this question, because it fascinates me how creative you've been. But what do you bring to the experience that you think was missing?
So, I mean, no one's reinventing the wheel. A squat is a squat, a lunge is a lunge, a push up is a push up, and so on and so on. So it's like, how are we delivering this content? How are we making that resonate with the body member or any member? Take it out of body. How are we making that person feel seen? And how are we meeting them at where they're at? Because that's what's important. It doesn't matter how great I am at the exercise. It's like, where are you, and how can I meet you at where you're at and take you to here? And I think that's what makes a great trainer. I've been in rooms with fantastic athletes, unbelievable sports people, but it doesn't mean that they're great teachers or great coaches, because it's understanding who's in front of you. I've taught so many different ways. I teach in person, obviously daily. I've taught thousands, if I want to say, if not millions, over the years of people, you know, and I think there's a big difference between in person and online. And I think, one of the things that I learned massively with BODi is obviously cueing and setting up exercises and stuff. But if you look at teaching, there's three ways that people learn. Okay. Your audio, you either hear what I'm telling you. Your visual, you either see what I'm showing you, or you can feel me. It's kinesthetic, right? I'm putting you into position. Now, with online, we get rid of one of those big three components. I'm not in the room with you, so I can't physically put you into position. I can't do hands-on adjustments. I can't. So we're heavily reliant on audio and visual. So I think what makes me different is exploring those avenues with audio, exploring those avenues with visual. Like, how am I setting up the exercise? What am I involving a cast member with it? How am I talking to the user? Am I looking straight down the lens and focusing in on you? Like, there's so many different ways that I'm trying to reach and pull people in. Um, and for those that haven't taken a class with me, I'm like, I like to refer to myself as like the energy dealer. I've got a lot of energy, and I'm willing to deal it. I'm willing to give it. So I feel like, it has to be fun, and it has to be engaging. Um, and I'm here for you. That's the way we got to look at it.
You've seen, you've taken all these classes, like you said, the boxing, Muay Thai, Muay Thai,
Muay Thai,
Muay
Muay
Thai.
Thai.
So you've done all these things, and you've seen the, particularly during the pandemic, the explosion of online, of trainers going online. Everybody's an expert. Um, what do you think is generally wrong with the fitness industry that you try to correct in your approach to fitness and instructing?
Well, first of all, people that aren't qualified.
Hmm.
So, I think I identified really early on in my career that I was passionate about something, but that doesn't then, give me the rights to go and solicit and give out information to people. I just think that I think that's for any industry. It's not just fitness. I think it's like for nutritionists. I think it's for, for chefs. I think it's like you may be able to cook up one good meal, but it doesn't make you, be able to give out food advice to people. And I feel like if you're passionate about something, there's education out there. So just educate yourself and then be in a position whereby you're certified and you know what you're talking about. So I think that's step one. Like was wrong with the industry. But I feel like a lot of people try to penalize people all the time. And it's like, we're just trying to get more people to move. Movement is medicine, right? And we're trying to get as many people to move as possible. As long as they're moving safely, there's something for everyone. Some people will be like, oh, what I don't like is when people try and take down other modalities. I always say there's like 1,000 ways to skin a cat, but it's just like, don't know if that's a good analogy, but
Yeah, who's skinning cats these days?
but but there's so many different things out there. And to your point, I'll take you as case in point. You're not a gym person, but that
Right.
doesn't mean your fitness journey ends. Back in the day, people were like, if you don't like the gym, you can't work out. Well, it's just
Right.
rubbish. It's just absolutely rubbish. There's so many things. Walking is one of the most underestimated things. Getting up and going for a walk for 20, 30 minutes is fantastic for your body. I just like, there's so many things out there. Yoga, Pilates, bar, HIIT, gym, football. We're not even touching the sports, So I think there's something for everybody, and we should be pointing fingers at other people and, saying this is wrong and this is right. I just think as long as people are moving safely and they're learning from somebody who's qualified, then big thumbs up.
We abide by that with the breadth and continuum of different types of modalities and programs that we have on the BODi platform. Just like we just launched 10-minute BODi for people who are like, look, I don't want to go through the pain. I just want to get the benefit of movement as medicine. So 10 minutes, they'll check the box, scientifically backed. They'll get some results that'll really have benefits to their health. But P90X is just a different experience. And what do you think, somebody who's contemplating entering the arena with you and P90X Generation Next, what do you think there is the type of objective that fits with taking on P90X?
It's called extreme home fitness for a reason, right? And I just feel like it does exactly what it says on the tin. It is extreme home fitness. Now, that doesn't mean that your entry level of fitness needs to be elite. Because, to your point, you said earlier, people that are like so confident, they're out there crushing it. I always say to people as a joke, if you're that serious, there's always the Olympics. Like if you're if you're like really into it, you can train for something. I want to reiterate what I said earlier. It's for anybody that's willing to show up every day. That's what P90X is. Is it extreme? Are you going to be doing stuff that you don't do in other programs? Absolutely. I can tell you straight off the bat without giving something away, because I know this comes out before February 3rd. There's plyometric. There's a plyometric workout in there, and there's going to be a move called a Bulgarian split squat jump that you're going to look at and be like, but we will take you there. We will take you there. I think one of the best things about BODi is when you're, looking at the screen, we identify with a modifier straight away. And I want to talk about that, and I want to highlight that modifier I really don't want a negative connotation around modifier. And a modifier, we all need a modifier. I need a modifier. I might have done a really, really hard workout the day before and my legs are just not feeling it, but I want another option, but I can't do what the Super Trainer's doing. So it's like visually on screen, I'm going to see that option, going back to the visual and the audio, and we'll cue that for you. Like at the top of the workouts will always be like, I'll give you an example. One of the trainers we had on set was called Chase. So like, this is Chase. She's going to be modifying today. And then people that are looking for that adjustment, because it's still tailor-made. Online workouts are still tailor-made. It's your workout. We're giving you, a bunch of things you can do, and you're picking. You're like, okay, this is great. I'm going to pick this. So, but just don't be shocked. I think, but to answer your questions, go back to the original question. don't be shocked with P90X. I mean, it's written in the name. The X is like in the name. It's extreme, and it sits on the more challenging side of things. Does it mean you can't do it? No. Does it mean it might take a bit more grit and resilience from your side of the bargain? Yeah. But, will I be there to help you all the way through? Absolutely.
Love it. Yeah, and we'll have a test group, we'll have a accountability group that kicks off on February 9th, which is actually the day after the Super Bowl. So football season's behind us. We don't need to worry about the indulgent Sundays that we would have had to skip if we want to get great results with P90X. And I am jumping in.
Yes.
I'm gonna be your silver
Yeah.
aged
Silver fox. Silver
well,
fox.
let's not go there. No, silver guinea pig, if there is such a thing.
I was going through. I was traipsing through all the old footage. Am I right in saying that that was you?
Oh, yeah.
I saw someone pop up that was like doof 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 doof.
Yeah. It
And I
was
was like, we live in a world of AI, but is that Carl's face on top?
Dude, now come on. That is exactly what my mom said when she saw my before and after. She said, "Whose body did you put your face
No,
on?"
congratulations.
And,
You look phenomenal. And
well,
and then, you're drinking the Kool-Aid. And I just thinking
yeah,
that's just another
dude,
thing. That's just another, there you go. Boom,
yeah,
Shakeology.
right.
But that's just another thing. And I talk about tried and tested all the time because I think also people are really numb to this like before and after, unless they know it's real. And I think BODi do a good way of showing that it's real. I mean, especially if you come out of BODi and you look at just the industry in general, you've always got that personal trainer who's posting photos before and after. You've got other gyms posting the before and afters, and then there's no story behind it, and then there's no name behind it, and then they're like blurred out in the face, and then they're just, you know, I was fortunate enough to do this test group before I came to film. We're talking about 50 to 60 people, and they were so important to the process. I didn't even realize this was a thing. And we created a bond and I got to know all of them and I was checking in on them and stuff. It's just, but just to see what's happened to their lives and their changes that have happened to them in their 90 days, like I mean, listen, I can't wait for this to go out to the masses because I just think this is, I mean, it's gold dust. It's like these people have, you're talking about like 180 in your life and completely changing the direction, and it all through what 90 days of doing some workouts.
Well, that's interesting. I really appreciate that you've observed just how special and remarkable, it can be when people like, there's a reason for the name, Power 90 Extreme, and what Power 90 means is I'm gonna break off this little window of time and do something that I have not been able to do just in the normal course of my behavior, and that is achieve dramatic in-home transformation. Have you been impressed by any of the results that you've heard about? I know that we're still getting results in from the test group, but I'm just wondering, are you feeling good about what you've seen?
Like insane.
What I've seen so far is I think the biggest weight loss story, and this blows my mind, was 41 pounds in 90 days. That's incredible. Now, obviously, it depends on where they start, how they eat. We want the weight loss to be healthy and sustainable, but that's amazing. For me, so I'm in decent shape, okay? Certainly, I would say
All right, Carl.
I'm in good shape, certainly in good shape for an old guy. But I will say for 2026, my goal for the year 2026 is to be able to do 26 pull-ups in a row. Not
In a
kips,
row.
in a row. I wanna be able to do 26. When I was younger, without really training, like training for it, I could do 22.
And
So
we're talking about full extension.
well, full ex like here.
Nah, nah, we were talking about the dropping all the way
Yeah,
down,
yeah.
arms.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Full all the way down and to the chin, but not kip. Like, I'm not gonna
Okay.
kip
Yeah,
my
yeah.
way to it. So, we'll see. That's my goal. So, P90X is going to be my primer to get me there. I think
Well,
now,
there's
like
there's enough pull-ups in that program. There's
Yeah.
enough pull-ups in that program to get you there. Like,
Yeah.
I'll tell you straight off the bat. I mean, you know this, but just for the user, you've got the pull-up bar if you haven't done it. You've got the pull-up bar, you've got the pull-up assist, and then we've got, you know, all sorts of dumbbell moves like pull over or some bent over rows, but we'll get you there. So I think that's, you know, tying it back to the I think that's a common goal for a lot of people. Not maybe not 26, but I think just doing a pull-up for is, you know, there'll be people that will look at this program and go, I can't do a pull-up. And I'm like, that's fine. We'll get you there. You know, after 90 days of doing the pull-up assist and after doing that. But yeah, going back to again to that question about am I impressed? I'm like, the weight loss was phenomenal. Like, and like you said, it was like the numbers were enormous. Not only was there 41, but there was a huge chunk of the group, you know, that were in like the 20 to 30 pounds. A big chunk of them were in that 20 to 30 pound bracket. That's the data stuff to one side. I mean, there's other stuff. There's like the mental stuff. There's this, the feel good factor that people don't talk about. You know, the life improvements that people don't talk about. You know, people are very concerned about what the scale says or what their waist says. We had all of that. We had, I
Yeah.
mean, and that was a given. I just knew that if they did these workouts for 90 days, you know, something is going to move. The needle's going to shift. You know, especially if they're doing, especially if they're looking after their diet as well, which they were. You know, but the life changes in confidence and how people show up every day for themselves, and you know, they're in how it comes back to their family and getting compliments from their partners and all these other things that you don't account for that they receive the benefits of because they've just invested in themselves. And I think that is priceless.
Yeah, and, you know, I think we can't I'm curious, just I'm always interested in these conversations about the human. Like, you were on a path to be a supermodel, now look at you, you're a super trainer, but I wonder, you know, Tony Horton's not an easy act to follow. Like, he embodied P90X, and I remember the first day on set, and he was a little stiff, and I pulled him aside, and I was like, "Tony, just be Tony. Like, you're funny. We were friends. Like, I just wanted him. I wanted the experience of working out with buddies. So I wonder what it's like for you, first off, to know that you're following in the footsteps, walking into a brand where there's a beloved trainer that people associate with that brand, but we wanted it to evolve. We wanted it to move into, you know, what has changed in fitness in 20 years. What do you think? First off, how was it for you to step into that role? And what do you think you bring to P90X Generation Next that evolves the concept of the greatest extreme home fitness program of history?
I mean, straight off the bat, Tony's the GOAT, right? He's like, he's the juggernaut. He's a fitness juggernaut. Everybody knows who he is, and quite rightly. And he's one of the best that's ever done it. So, you know, I just think to even be mentioned. I said this to my friend the other day. They're like, "How do you feel about doing it?" And I went, "Well, there's only ever two people that have done P90X. One of them's Tony Horton, and the other one's me." So, so that in itself was just, you know, was just self gratification. I was just very happy with that because, like you said, they're big boots to fill. Um, you know, and I just feel like in terms of moving it forward and into there is a generation next. There is a group of people that are out there that I know there are because I teach them daily that wants to be engaged, you know, in a different way than the way they were engaged with the DVDs and stuff. It's a different era, it's a different time. That's no stab at Tony at all. It's no sly at Tony at all. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Tony. So I just think that it's an opportunity, and I think you described it beautifully on the intro. It's like everyone's got a favorite Bond. You know, if you idol, you know, what's your favorite James Bond? And it's like, well, mine's Sean Connery. You know, mine's Pierce Brosnan. Well, mine's Daniel Craig. And then you'll get people that go, I don't like Daniel Craig. I don't like Pierce Brosnan. You know, like, and then they'll be like, no, no, no. This is my favorite film. This is my, and that's what we're doing. And it's no different. You know, it's no different to the cinematography. It's no different to the thing. We are literally creating blockbuster movies. And I want to remind people who we're creating them for. We're creating them for you. This is for a BODi member. Everything I'm doing is trying to better you. So it's not me on some ego trip and being like, I am the best trainer ever, and this is me versus Tony or da. No, Tony did some fucking massive blockbusters. You know, he did some big movies, right? It's my turn to make some movies. That's just the way I look at it, and I think it's like, let the cameras roll. If you I get it. People are going to be hesitant. I know you asked me about what the reaction was. I've received mixed bag, and that's me being completely transparent. I've had people, love the aesthetics or love the way it looks, or like, because the set's incredible, and we'll come on to that.
Yeah.
We'll come on to the set and the nutritional bolt on and the add on that we're doing, and all the like the fancy stuff that we're sort of evolving the program into. Um, and not to mention the trainers that I'm working out with as well. Just phenomenal athletes and coaches that people are gonna love. So if they don't love me, they'll love who I'm standing next to.
Yeah.
But but I honestly feel like I describe it like, as anyone, you've all watched Friends, right? Friends is a TV sitcom.
Yeah.
Right, everyone's got a favorite character. Everyone, "Oh, I like Joey," or "I like Ross," or, "I like, I'm Rachel or Phoebe," or this, that, and that's what I try to create on the set. We've got Jalen, we've got Kyle. You're gonna get to know these people. We've got Zach, we've got Ari, Angelina. Like, we've got all these people on set, and if they're not if they're not signing up and coming to see me particularly, they've got all the other people in there as well. So it's just, we're creating it and we're here for you.
Yeah.
So you're signing in and we're here to help you make you better.
I think the energy that you brought to the set, which was just phenomenal, like, it was just fun to watch the shoots and be like, "I'm watching a star." Like, I'm watching like, then that's the feeling that I would literally get with absolute humility, that I'm like, "Oh my god, this is what a super trainer is." Now, I think you forged that ability to light up a room, either with these things that you would do, I mean, you made a name for yourself in the UK and then New York, with these live pop-up events that made, like, people were just going crazy with these fitness events that you put on. And can you tell us about that? What was that? What is that you do?
So I sort of like, I looked at what nightlife is, right? And nightlife is congregation of people and it's the theatrics, and I was like, there's got to be a way, go back to that comment of like a squat is a squat, a lunge is a lunge. How do we market it? How do we deliver it to the person? I was like, there's just got to be another way. And I'm right, because this is this is this is what everyone is doing now. You look at the big boys that are doing it, like High Rocks, and you look at all these other massive community events, festivals, and it's not centric around alcohol anymore. It's centric around movement and fitness. So what I did was, I was like, we take over iconic hotspots and venues, and we put on a fitness experience from start to finish. So using my nightlife contacts, I was like, right, what buildings can I get access to? And you don't go about it the normal way. You don't go about it by phoning up and emailing their events team and being like, hey, I want to rent your space, because you're going to get an email back that says, yeah, you can rent it for $150,000 on these dates. And, I'm like, I'm just doing squats and lunges. so, so I just went ham. I started going like around looking for all these cool venues. I'll give you an idea of what I did in London. I did loads. I did a helipad. I put some boxing bags on top of a helipad in Waterloo in London. I took over a hotel, which is like a really famous, it's called an Andaz hotel it's called a 1901 ballroom. It's like where people get married. And then our first one I did was in a restaurant. It was like a 2-level restaurant. And here's the kicker. This is what I wanted from the storytelling. I wanted people to go out to these places, like have dinner with their friend in a restaurant, and be like, I did a workout here. It was crazy. They'll be like, shut up. I'll be like, no, 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 I did a workout here. I actually did a workout here. I did a workout right here. And I'm like, where do they teach? Oh, they taught on the bar. Like it was just like a conversation, and it just created momentum.
Yeah.
People were like, these guys are crazy. They just come in. We brought dumbbells. I mean, we even took over Ministry of Sound nightclub in London, which is like one of the most iconic nightclubs in London. And I had like boxing kick pads. We had My Zone, who look after the heart rates. We had them come and do like a live heart rate monitor screen so people could see like the heart rate zones they were working in, and we'd like shout out people's names and be like, yo, you're in the red zone. Like, you're killing it. So we'd find ways. We'd have live DJs. We'd get all these brands to come and sample and give out, So I looked at it as like a festival, like a mini festival. And I just wanted people to meet each other that were like-minded, like I wanted people, and really, really am sniffing that out with the body community. Like, I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see it with the body community, just through the test group. I can feel, and we're talking about millions of people, Carl. Like, what you've created, I'm not talking about 10 or 200 or 300. Like, when this goes to launch in February, we're talking about millions of people that are aching to be connected with each other,
Right.
And I just think that is where the secret sauce is.
Yeah.
And then obviously fast forwarding to New York, I mean, because the Americans, they'll know the venues, but I took over Rockefeller Ice Rink. I did the USS Intrepid, which is a battleship it's got aircrafts on it.
Yeah.
I took
Aircraft
over
carrier. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and I took over Radio City Rooftop, and did where the Rockettes perform down there. The list is endless.
Yeah.
The list is endless. I just think that is the future.
Well, I really hope we tap into that skill set. Like, I want Waz Ashayer P90X live events to happen, and we got to get that on the calendar. But I want to know, let's get back to the program itself now. So that energy, which made you like the buzz during COVID, that you were going out there when everybody was supposed to stay away from each other, and you were keeping community alive and building community around health and fitness. How did you translate that into the workouts? And maybe take a minute here now and describe P90X Generation Next, and what is the format? Describe the program.
Yeah, I mean, the program is a collection of workouts. The best way I like to look at them is like clusters of workouts, so you know what you're getting. There's like a recovery set in there. There's like a skill set in there. And then there's got your big bang traditional workouts. And then you also have another cluster of like power workouts, which is true. So the recovery segment, let's talk about that, because I think people underlook that all the time when they jump into programs. It's just fully comprehensive. Like, we partnered with Hyperice on that one. So we've got all the gadgets and tools if you want them, but you don't need them. Okay, they're there. They're a great assist. But you are showing up for active flexibility, active mobility. I know back in the day there was longer workouts with yoga and stuff, and I just feel like with the mobility, the flexibility, and we've got myofascial release, which is essentially utilizing a foam roller to its potential. So that's a big difference. If people are looking at the older program to the newer program, out with the yoga, in with the flexibility, mobility, and myofascial. So that's something that they'll see for
So
sure.
there's no yoga in this.
No yoga. No. There are downward dogs though.
All right.
There are some yoga moves in there, but there is no dedicated yoga.
Got it.
And then it doesn't mean to say that you won't be getting it. I really feel like that's the way that recovery's moved. Recovery's moved into more acute sort of approach, which is the flexibility, the mobility, and the myofascial.
Yeah, and range of motion, I think, based on what I saw, I think it's gonna be really good for people to have a day and have a protocol that lubricates everything and helps heal the things that have been worked to an extreme.
Well, without giving out too much, we test you in one of the workouts before you do the workout. So we do like a mini test, and then we retest you at the end of the workout. And it's about being, you're being held accountable. And I think that's key. And you will notice that if you do the test at the start of the workout, you do the test at the end of the workout, guess what? It's going to work. That's one cluster. The other cluster is the skill stuff. Okay. And again, this is like the sporting edge, right? The competitive edge over some other programs that we've got. you've got plyometrics. Okay, plyometrics. I mean, you're talking pogos, you're talking all sorts of different moves that you probably wouldn't have seen on a workout exercise sheet. That is explosive. They're shorter rounds, okay, but they're extreme intensity. You've got speed and agility as well. Speed and agility. You're using sort of. We've actually got one of the guys on set is an athlete. We've got a baseball player, a professional baseball player that joins in and does the workouts for that as well. So it's not something that we just pluck from the air. It's something that we've like sat down and really, really gone through.
Mhm.
And then we've got acceleration, deceleration. So that's the other skill set. Okay. And I guarantee you wouldn't have seen those three names in like dedicated to a workout each
Mhm.
anywhere else.
Yeah.
So that's key. The big bang, and this is really where I come into my own. And I think definitely in the sample workout, you'll get a taste for who I am, what I am, and what the program's about. Because I can remember filming that, and if I say so myself, I had like an outer body experience. I think it's because the whole crew were there, like everybody was there to watch the sample workout, and we were like taking bits of each program, and I just went off. So, but you've got like, there's EMONs in there, there's AMRAPs. So an EMON is like 1 minute challenges. AMRAPs is like as many strength cycles you can go around as possible within a given time, as many rounds as possible. But yeah, those big bang, there's a lower body workout, there's an upper body workout, there's a push workout, there's a pull workout. And then you're looking at the power cluster, the last cluster of them. You've got power full body, power lower body, all that sort of stuff. So it's it's there. It's all there. There's so much for you to sink your teeth into. And then the way that they get released is, you won't get them all at once. So we will build you up a nice crescendo. It's like skill based. You'll learn some stuff, you'll learn some more stuff, and then you'll be flying. And then you'll look forward to repeat. Because a big thing of this program that I don't think people really understand unless they've done it, um, is that you repeat these workouts. So when you repeat these workouts, you're going in there. I always say like the body panics when it doesn't know what it's doing, but when you do know what it's doing, you can absorb it, you can let it in, like you can bring in the uncomfortableness, the pain. Yeah, I know what's coming. I know what's coming. And I think there's something that's sort of reassuring about that, but then it's up to you to push yourself through, pick up heavier dumbbells next week. You know, don't, start on time. If it's 45 seconds, start on time. That there's certain things that you can do and you're in control of the variables. I always say there's so many different variables that you can twist and turn, and we give you the controller. So you are like, right, I'm going to go up 2 pounds. I'm going to go up 5 pounds. I'm not going to do the regression today. I'm going to do the full pull-ups. So even though you're repeating it, you are fully in control of that, cranking the tempo.
About how long are the workouts?
So the workouts typically, I don't think there's anything longer than 40 minutes. So 40 to 45 minutes is where we sort of maxed out. I feel like that is like the sweet spot if you're going to do a workout at home. And just the way that people live their lives these days, I think they're like people that want convenience over long, long workouts. It's about training smart, isn't it? It's about training smart and effectively. And, there's a lot of stuff out there at the moment, which is like junk volume, people talking about, like I said before, if you're moving and you're moving safe, it's great. But we also we want you to track stuff. I know Sean does it in his classes as well, where they take in the pen and the paper and they go in there and they record it. And that's what we want. We want you to be effective. We don't want it to consume your life.
Yeah.
You know,
What did you call it? Trash volume? What did you say?
like junk volume. Like when people go to a gym and they're like, right, we're gonna do 10 sets of this and 20 sets of that. And it's like, great. That's amazing. But there are efficient ways to train and there's non-efficient ways to train. And I just feel like
Hmm.
they could do a smaller amount of stuff and heavier weight and really focus on certain groups.
Sure.
I feel like that's important. And I feel like we deliver that. I feel like we really, really deliver that at P90X.
Well, it's awesome. Look, I want to wrap this up so that people can start to think about what is their start date going to be? Do they want to be in the first wave of P90X Generation Next with us starting February 9th? So I guess maybe my last question would be, because this podcast is called the BODi Experience, and it's not a live situation where you can run a class and you can motivate people and you can see where they're lacking energy, or you can see people specifically. So you've got to do this virtually. I want to know what your intention is starting February 9th when you're going to be in the BODi Experience community, in that dedicated P90X Generation Next community. What are you going to bring to that? And what are you hoping to get out of it?
Connection, like a fostering community and a connection. Like, you can do any workout you want, and in fact, you're gonna reach out and do mine is like that's an honor. And I don't take that lightly. And I wanna know everything. I wanna see you through. You speak to the guys in the test group. I'm like on top of everything. Like, I've invited them to come and take my classes in real life. I generally want to see these people. I want to meet these people. I want feedback. I said, there's that saying that's like feedback breakfast for champions. It's like, I'm not going to get it right all the time. I'm not going to please 100 people 100 times. You know, I just want to make sure that I'm there to support you and motivate you, and I'm being helpful towards your journey. And if there's any way I can do that, I'm gonna find that out through being connected on the body community. So I will be there. I'll be there from February 3rd when it launches. I'll be there from when the group starts on February 9th. And my goal for this is to come back and do another set. And when I do another set, I want to know what we can improve on, how we can help you,
Right.
because we always talk about taking people to the next level and pushing people to the extreme and pushing people and maximizing their potential, and that's exactly what I'm here for. So I'm all ears. And I always say this, I'll leave you with one thing. I always say this because I know a lot of people probably land on my profile and be like, ah, he loves himself. I'll tell you this. I take my work very seriously. I don't take myself seriously. So once you've done the program, you'll see that I'm goofing around, I'm making silly jokes. I'm just, I'm very much just, I don't think much of myself, but I think very highly of my work. And I will stand by this. And I think this is one of the strongest programs that you can be involved in. And I'm excited to see everyone's results.
Awesome. Well, look, I just want to say it's funny when people are critical of, they'll see an Instagram profile, which is that person's Instagram profile. So of course they're featuring themselves. And honestly though, Waz, I think you have been through an incredibly difficult journey, and what you have overcome personally with the journey from modeling to nightlife to addiction to conquering the addiction and throwing yourself into fitness in a way that is truly next level. I think you don't have to round that corner. You're allowed to absolutely be proud of yourself and love yourself, and that, I think, is part of what makes you a super trainer, and I'm saying that because I want the people who invest themselves into this program to do it because they love themselves enough to test themselves and experience this aspect of life, which is an adventure to see what you can achieve. Like, I think that's what life can be about. Whether it's, I'm gonna start 10-minute workouts, or I'm gonna impale myself on this extreme program and really go for it. And I want people to get to the finish line of this and be able to look themselves in the mirror and say, "I love myself for taking this on and finishing it." Whatever the results are. You might not lose a pound, you might gain weight, I don't know. But the people that take it on and complete it deserve a parade, their own personal parade in the mirror where they get to take that victory lap and go, "You know what? You did this." And, people do it with High Rocks events, they do it with all these sorts of things, but to do it for 90 days is next level. This is Mount Everest kind of stuff, and that's what I hope people get out of this, and I hope they get inspired by what you've done with your life and poured in to P90X Generation Next.
100%. Your life changes when you pick yourself. That's all I'm going to say. When you start putting yourself forward, yeah, it's like, and you put yourself first, if I had to draw a graph, next year I'll be 10 years clean, sober. If I had to draw a graph of, you put happiness, productivity all on the up axis, it literally is the steepest line from the day that you decide to look after yourself and commit yourself. It just goes up and up and up and up and up. And then you look back and you're like, you don't even recognize that person. And it is so fulfilling. And like, that's what I mean by every day. And that's why P90X is so perfect for me, and for me to be able to help other people, because it is day by day. And you'll be gasping. You'll be like wanting that flexibility workout. I'm telling you, you'll do some workouts and you'll be like, thank God I'm with my roller for, for 20 minutes today and nothing else. Like like it is day by day by day by day, but it's called stacking days, stacking days, stacking days. Anything I do, nutrition, fitness, anything I say is stack days. Because if you stack days, you move so far away from that old version of yourself that you're like, oh, wow, and then it becomes almost like comical. I can't believe I was doing this. I can't believe I was doing that. So, so yeah, to your point, if they're willing to turn up every day, I'll keep going.
I love it. Well, Waz Ashayer, the latest super trainer of BODi, welcome to the team. Thank you for putting together an incredible program, and I'm excited to just see the truckloads of amazing results that you're about to affect in people's lives, and I think it's going to be a great journey. So thanks for joining us on the BODi Experience, and thanks for creating our next big program.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
All right, so like I've said, I'm doing this. I'm going in February 9th, and I've got a crazy goal for the year. I want to increase the number of pull-ups that I can do, but also I'm going to do it responsibly. I'm going to do it on the in a way that takes care of my body. That's why Waz insisted that we incorporate lots of recovery in here, so that people don't just get through to an end of 90 days looking better and being stronger, but they're actually more functional. So this is an exciting time. This is the evolution of extreme home fitness. This is P90X Generation Next, and you are officially invited. Go to P90X.com if you want to check it out. There's a special subscription. If you just want to do P90X, you can do it at that, or you can come into the full BODi subscription, and then you get access to all the nutrition plans and all the tools and the motivation, so that you can get the most out of this big commitment that you're going to make. But we're excited. It's coming. P90X Generation Next, and I'll be there. I'll be in the group. Waz will be in the group, and we hope you'll be in the group. Thanks for joining us today on the BODi Experience. We'll see you next time, and we'll see you in the group for P90X Generation Next.